Chris, what happened to your curls?
Underneath this.
Ah,
Can't
Oh,
get out
nice
there.
background. Beautiful background.
Thank you. It's my dream house.
Okay.
Really. Where is it?
I'm sitting on the deck of a house that I built up in Wellfleet.
Wow.
It's overlooking Wellfleet Harbor.
Okay,
Oh,
we are
good.
live on YouTube, and if you give me one more minute, I will record to the cloud, and then Tom Roach. Tom, you're up.
Okay, you want to do the moderator first?
Sure, thank you. The May 20th, 2020 meeting of the Yarmouth Planning Board is about to convene. As a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of the coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public, and this meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Kathy Williams, and I'm the Yarmouth Town Planner, and I will be serving as your moderator for this virtual meeting. I will now turn it over to the Planning Board Chairman.
Good evening. My name is Tom Roach, and I serve as chairman of the Yarmouth Planning Board. I will begin by taking a roll call vote for a quorum. Chris Vincent,
Here.
Liz Hartsgrove,
Here.
Lee Rowley,
present.
Joanne Crowley,
Here.
Tom Barron.
Here.
With the quorum present, I will now open the meeting and turn the meeting back over to the moderator.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 23rd order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Planning Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching this virtual meeting or the live feed on the Town of Yarmouth YouTube channel. You may also listen to the meeting by dialing into the phone number provided on the notice of meeting. We will also post a recording of the meeting on the Town of Yarmouth website as soon as we are able. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with the virtual meeting. Hopefully we've already done that for this evening. For all meetings, to reduce the confusion during the meeting, all audience participants of the meeting are muted by the moderator. Participants will only be unmuted when called upon to speak by the chair or the moderator. All votes must be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there is a second, the chair will ask for a roll call vote. All motions, decisions, and conditions will be verbally read into the record. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noises, and do not use speakerphone or Bluetooth devices when speaking. For applicants and presenters, applicants can use the raise hand button or the press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair, and the moderator will unmute them during their portion of the agenda. Applications or presentations provided by the applicant will be displayed during the meeting by the moderator, or as pre-approved for larger projects like the one this evening, temporary panelist capabilities will be given to the presenter to share their screens while giving their presentation. For public hearings, during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment, the chair will ask who in the audience has any public comments or questions. Members of the public may speak by selecting the raise hand button and waiting for the chair to call on them. If you are dialed in the phone number, you may press *9 on the phone to indicate you would like to comment. As an alternative to making comments via the online audio or phone, you may also submit comments to the moderator via the virtual meeting chat function. To do this, click on the chat icon and type your message. When prompted, the moderator will read comments and questions into the record. Members of the public recognized by the chair are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record, and then provide their comment each time they speak or when they comment through the chat function. Prior to concluding opportunities for public comment, the chair will ask one last time if anyone wishes to speak or give additional comment. I will now hand the meeting back over to the planning board.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. First item on our agenda is continued from May 6th. Public hearing petition 115, South Yarmouth Wise Living Retirement Community, applicant Wise Living Development LLC, owners Macklin LLC, 834 Main Street, Realty Trust, and Baker Frank LLC, project location 822, 834 Route 28, and 30 Frank Baker Road, South Yarmouth. Assessors map 33, parcel 70-1, assessors map 41, parcel 12, and assesses map 41 parcel 11.1. Zoning districts B2, HMOD1, Road, and VCOD, VC2. The applicant seeks to use special permit under zoning bylaw section 202.5.PS, note 35, for assisted living retirement communities within the Village Centers Overlay District, VCOD, Village Center 2, and in parentheses, VC2. Attorney Singer, would you, for the record, introduce yourself and the applicant that you're representing?
Yes, good evening. For the record, my name is Andrew Singer. I'm a lawyer in Dennisport, here on behalf of Wise Living Development LLC, which is the applicant. With us tonight is Kieran Healy, who's also on the screen, project engineer. We have submitted a number of materials to you. I'm going to go through the legal presentation. I'll be mentioning some aspects of the actual physical proposal. Kieran will then go through the plans in more detail. He also can share screen so that others can see the plan as well. You do have with you a large packet of plans, both site plan set, architecturals, as an aerial photograph with the project superimposed on it. You have traffic data, maintenance protocols, and a rendering of the site itself. These are 3 properties at the moment that are going to be merged into one. The proposal is to convert what is now the hotel and restaurant property into a Wise Living retirement community with 120 units. There will be a common resident dining facility and outdoor pool. There'll also be a leased medical complex with up to 2 doctors and other related exercise rehab. The existing building at 834 Route 28, which has 3 tenants in it now, will remain with 3 tenants. That's not going to change, but the land itself is it's all becoming one site. This project is in the B2 and the VCOD overlay districts. As you know, but I'll repeat for the record here, because we have been before you, this project has undergone both site plan review, but then it's also gone through VCOD site plan review with you, and we also met with you to discuss some other relief that we are going to be seeking from the Board of Appeals that I will mention. The P5 use is allowed by special permit in this zone. The main larger building will have the most significant upgrades. It will have a new porte cochere at the front as the entrance, several new smaller roof overhangs at various doors going down the sides and other aspects of the building. It's also going to have a very dramatic new roof. Right now, most of the building has a flat roof, and that will be changed to a pitched roof with cupolas, gables, dormers, and other architectural elements to improve not only the aesthetics, but the appearance and the breaking up the massing, which is one of the requirements in the VCOD design standards. There will be rooftop solar panels on the larger building. On the smaller building, there will be architectural changes on the west side of the building with new open entries, cupola, and some dormers. And the east side, as we'll discuss, is going to remain the same. The vacant land is at the back of the larger parcel. That's going to remain as is, part of the project, but it's going to remain vacant. In looking at the use special permit, the board looks at the provisions of section 414.3.3 of the zoning bylaw, and you must make findings regarding that the project will not cause, create, or contribute to undue nuisance, hazard, or congestion, and there'll be no substantial harm. We respectfully submit on behalf of the applicant that this proposal will meet all of the requirements and guidelines and purposes of the zoning bylaw for the VCOD2 redevelopment, because in part, the proposal satisfies the purpose provisions and is a mixed-use redevelopment and will improve pedestrian and vehicular access between properties. Kieran will discuss an interconnection that's being proposed, both pedestrian and vehicular. The proposal, as I mentioned, has 120 residential units. This is the allowed density for the site. We have met at length with the building commissioner, and he is the named both for parking and use. And we also talked with town council, and the use with the number of units meets the density. Age restrictions will be compliant with state law. 8 of the units will be handicap accessible. There will be no inclusionary units, none are required. Each unit will be equipped with a kitchenette consisting of a cooktop, microwave, refrigerator, and sink. There will be weekly housekeeping of the units. There is existing parking at the front of the building along the front west side that is non-conforming. That is going to be removed in its entirety and will become part of the new landscape front buffer that Kieran will show you. The parking behind the commercial building at 834 Route 28 is being upgraded by extending the pavement 60 feet to the rear to the existing fence line, if you've been out to the site, and separating it from the overflow gravel parking, which will remain. There will also be other upgrades, as you see on the plan, to that parking area. The entire parking lot will ultimately be resurfaced, restriped as part of this redevelopment. The interconnections, as I mentioned, as you see on the plans, will also provide for pedestrian and vehicular cross connection. The buildings themselves are conforming with the dimensional requirements of the bylaw and will stay conforming. Building coverage is conforming, site coverage is conforming, building height is conforming. All of these are going to be conforming. So the site from a use point of view is a conforming redevelopment of the site. The part of the drainage at the front of the property will be where the porte cochere is, will be raised to accommodate the porte cochere itself. There are going to be additional handicap accessibility built in. It's not handicap accessible at the moment. So all of that is going to be done. Handicap parking spaces are being provided as well. There is also going to be to the back of the property, behind the property, there are some wetlands, and none of those are going to be, even the buffer zones are going to be impacted. So this project all stays away from those. The existing curb cuts, as you'll see, are going to stay the same. Here we'll be working with Mass Highway on revising the curb cut permit. The elimination of the public restaurant that's in the property now and the transient hotel use will reduce vehicle trips to the site. It will be a less intensive, what's proposed is a less intensive use of the property. We did submit a traffic analysis that documents this. We've also submitted a turning template plan regarding public safety access, and Kieran will be continuing to work with the fire department after tonight as construction commences ultimately, and that is one of the conditions that we'll be discussing later on tonight. With the reuse of the site with the parking, there are going to be 173 parking spaces remaining. There's many more now. They're being reduced. We have worked with, again, the building commissioner, who has determined that the parking that is shown is conforming. You have a detailed parking analysis table on the site plan that you have in front of you. Exterior building lighting will be upgraded to be dark sky compliant, traditional New England period fixtures, and it's going to be conforming both on the building and around the site. There are 2 signs on the property today, one for the hotel use and one for the commercial building. The sign where the hotel is now will be repurposed in roughly the same location and area and size for the new use. We are seeking relief from the Board of Appeals to maintain what will now be a second freestanding sign for the commercial building. It is there today. We're not proposing any changes to it, but because the lots are being combined, we need relief for that. There is a lot of existing mature landscaping around the property now, and that is being retained. In addition, as I mentioned, and you'll see, there is a significant new landscape front buffer to further improve the aesthetics of the front of the property. It will be adequate screening all around the property. There is a fence that goes down Frank Baker Road that will be modified with a 4-foot fence to replace what is there today. There will be no access from Frank Baker Road. There's none today and none is proposed. As for new in-lot trees, they are being proposed as required with 4 exceptions for which we're asking for relief from the Board of Appeals. 3 of those are that because they're reusing the existing septic systems, instead of having 3 in-lot trees in those islands that are over the septic system, they're proposing to have 3 shrubs, 1 each in that area, and 1 in-lot tree that Kieran can show you has to be relocated in its island so that it won't be disturbing the existing septic system. We respectfully submit that this mixed-use redevelopment meets the purposes and intent of the VCOD overlay district. It will preserve and revitalize the town's natural, cultural, and economic resources while supporting sustainable development that enhances and improves the community's character and sense of place. This is a use that is well needed in the community. It is a use that this redevelopment will provide. With that, I will turn it over to Kieran to go through the plans. If you have any questions throughout the evening, we're happy to answer them, and we appreciate your review and consideration of the project. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kieran Healy. I'm a land surveyor with the BSC Group, representing the applicants tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you, John. So just going through the multiple sheets that we've submitted. First sheet right here is a cover sheet just showing a list of all those items that we're looking at.
Excuse me, Kieran, we're not seeing anything.
I've got about 4 or 5 lines on top, but it's still, you can't make anything out.
Let me try again. Is that any better?
No, I'm going to
No.
stop. I'm going to stop you from sharing, and then you can try again.
Okay.
So try again.
Is that any better?
Nope. Do you want me? I have it. Do you want me to pull it up?
If you would pull it up, I'll just go through it page by page. That way we won't have to go back and forth.
Okay, hang on a minute.
Thank you.
Let me see. We're having all kinds of fun this evening. So you will have to direct me as to what you would like to be looking at, Karen.
If you want to go back to the previous page. Okay. Nope. This one right here, yes, the rendering. This basically is the views of the building with the proposed improvements. If I could direct your attention to the top, the south elevation, if you look at the left, very top left and top right of that south elevation, you will see a rooftop on the left-hand side and a rooftop on the right-hand side. That is being added to break up the flat roof that is there right now. The flat roof, a portion will remain for solar use, but from the east and the west, you'll see a full roof line that will look like any other conventional building. If I go on to the next page, please. This is a general area locus of the property. You'll see the blue in the middle, that is the current 822 building. To the bottom right, still within the red area, is 834. And then on the back, the wooded area is the Frank Baker Road site. All 3 of these will be combined as one and will be treated as one going forward if the special permit is approved. The next slide, please, Kenny. So this again is just a cover sheet breaking up. You'll see that the building is so big that we broke it up into 2 sheets. So you'll see that a front portion and a rear portion of the building as we go through the property. This is the existing conditions. There are a lot of lines on this plan, and I'm sorry for that, but there's just a lot of underground utilities, a lot of different things going on subsurface here. The wetlands are delineated at the rear. Parking lot is the parking lot that exists. We're not extending the parking lot in any form going to the north towards the wetland. We are extending it approximately 2 feet on the west side towards Frank Baker Road. It will still conform with the 20-foot setback, but it just allows those parking areas to be full size on that westerly side. This, I guess, here is the area where we've got the most visible improvements going on. The areas in red are, as we spoke at the last meeting, are areas where we've specifically looked for some relief. If I start on the back left, Patty, and we'll just go around clockwise, make it easy for everybody. So the first red line you see back there basically is, that is an overhang that we're going to put over the doorway to break up that line right there. It is not enclosed, and as a result, that's one of the things that we will be looking for relief on. Going further south, you will see a red circle and then a further line with red text. That is the two areas where we're looking to get relief, where they're directly over a septic system. It is possible to put in the trees in there, but it would be very close to septic systems and it would be difficult to maintain. So we're looking to get relief so we don't put ourselves in that position. The next thing we talked about was the easement, the ones all the way along. The requirement is to have a sidewalk running all the way along the property on Route 28. We'll be looking for relief in the future to not put in the sidewalk, but put in an 8-foot wide easement right now. And any of our plantings that we put in will be held back from that 8 feet so that they don't interfere with the ability to put in the sidewalk if the state were to widen the road at some stage. Then moving further east, we have the sign there that spoke about, the second sign on the street. It's the existing sign that's there right now, and that's just going to be looked to be maintained. All these items are relief that we'll need. They're not so much for the use, but they're items that need to, I guess, be discussed as we will be going forward to the zoning board of appeals.
Aaron, while you still have this diagram visible, I just have a question about at the rear of the property. There's a 20-foot wide water easement. It says there's an 8-inch water main. Is that part of the service to the complex, or is that for access to Frank Baker Road only?
The easement, the line runs up Frank Baker Road and then it crosses the rear of our property and services the rear of our property and then runs on and connects over to Seine Pond condominiums. So it's actually a physical easement that runs right through the property. We get the benefit of using it, but it also services Seine Pond condominiums. There is a hydrant on that line which services the rear of our building. So that's something that's definitely benefit for us.
All right, thank you.
Just speaking of the water lines, one of the things that's been agreed with is that sprinklers will go into the rear portion of the building where the living units are. So that's part of the proposal. Then if we go on to the next page, Guy, please. So this is just showing you the subsurface utilities that are there. There's no real need to discuss them. There is plenty of drainage and the septic system. We're working with the state right now to get confirmation from them. They have preliminarily approved it, but we don't have anything in writing as of yet to maintain the existing septic system and the flow that goes with it. So that's this particular slide. And then next one, if I could, Guy. So the next one is some general details, the site planting plan, and the most important, I guess, would be the access for the fire department apparatus. The red that you can see in the center of your page right now is a tumbling template that we've used based on the town of Yarmouth's fire truck. It's the ladder truck, so it's the largest vehicle, and the location of the entranceway should not interfere with that tumbling into the property. They can easily go in and take a left and go around the building that way, but we want to be sure that they can go around the building and go to the right as well. And that appears to be the case with this tumbling template based on the information that the fire department gave us. South of that, you will see that there is a car, just an auto turn for a passenger vehicle that basically allows somebody to depart the vehicle underneath the porte cochere and then for the vehicle to drive out onto the main road without having to turn around or do any backups. If I could have you go back one screen there, please, Kenny. There is a cross connection. There's actually 2 cross connections, as Andrew had mentioned, between the 2 parcels here. One is for vehicular access down at the south end, and one is about 40-50 feet back, which is for pedestrian access between the 2 properties. at the request of the planning board, we put in a stop sign and a painted line right at that where the two driveways meet, just for safety, to slow people down and make sure that they can get out and not just jump right out onto that. If we could skip down a couple, please. This again is just construction details for the sidewalks and so on. Next slide, please. So here's the existing floor plan. You'll see that in this, on the left-hand side is the front facing Route 28, and then on the rear is on the right-hand side. You can see that all the rooms are basically in the two wings of the building, and the restaurant and lounge area and pool area and offices are all in the front section, basically for check-in, where the existing hotel has its main offices. You'll also notice that there are no elevators on this existing floor plan. If you could go on to the next one, please, Kenny. This is a partial basement plan. It's the front of the building is up on the north side of the top of the screen, shall we say. And these are existing basement areas that are on the building right now. They will be used for some additional storage for each of the individual units. The elevators that will be put in on the first and second floors will also go down to this floor and allow easier access. So there's no need for carrying anything up by stairs. Everything can be just rolled right off an elevator and into a storage area that each individual unit will have. Caddy, if we go on. So here's the proposed first floor plan. In general, there's not a huge amount of change to the units themselves. Basically, every 2 units has a concrete firewall, and those walls will remain. Some of the units are going to be combined to, shall we say, double units or 1-bedroom units. The other ones will remain as studio-style units. On the left-hand side, you'll see how we've changed at the front of the area, where the large pool that covered up basically 2 of those blocks in the middle will now be a wading pool. And the other area will be gymnasium, and north of that will be the medical facility. And then we have offices in the same location to the front left, and down below we have the dining room. And the bar area will be reduced in size, I believe, and the dining room will be allowed for all of the residences. If we could go on, please. This, I guess, is important for the planning board to recognize, is that these are the types of units that will be here. You will see that the one is on top is your typical studio unit, which is kind of the layout that's there right now. And in the next one is the typical 1-bedroom unit, where there will be basically the middle wall removed, and it will basically have 2 bathrooms, 1-bedroom unit. And then the ones below that are the typical accessible units, where everything will be, if not already, handicapped accessible when it's ready. So next slide, please. So here's the second floor plan. It's exactly the same as the first, in that it's, the rooms will either be 1-bedrooms or studio units. The elevators will service this area. The stairways exist, will all be remaining area. So. Then the roof plan, as you can see, the entire 2 wings of the property right now are flat roofs. On the very north side at the top of the screen and the very south side at the bottom of the screen, here's where we're putting in those facade and roof lines to give the apparition of a standard roof line. Behind that will be still remain flat, and that will be where the solar panels will go. Solar arrays will go on the flat roofs. The direction will be facing to the left, which is pretty much facing due south. Next slide, please, Gary. So here's the front of the building again, similar to what we had shown in our first slide, the rendering. The east and west elevations will now have railings along the individual units. You can see it better on this one right here, below the typical gable. These railings will be primarily, the use will be just to allow for safety because some of the driveways are close to this, but it'll also allow each unit to have its own seating area outside if that's what's chosen. You can see the gable unit on top. That's all, everything from that line north is going to be additional building to decrease the overall length of the building, to break up those areas that require to be broken up, and to give it some more architectural character. Next, please. This is the front elevation again. It just shows you the areas. The front elevation is quite, the existing is quite lengthy. There's no change to the distance from east to west, except for the area on the far right hand side where we're putting in those two small overhangs over existing doors to break up that area. And there is one also positioned on the left hand side. Next, please. Here you can see the proposed gables on the east and west side. This is the front half of the building, and you can see how we're breaking up. Right now, all of this area is a flat roof running all along the wings of both sides. So you see there's a substantial amount of architectural being put into each side to break up that flat roof. Next, please. And this is the rear portions of both east and west. And again, you can see it's broken up with the dormers and gables, and to reduce the massing of the building and the flat roof. Next, please. This is the 834 Main Street elevations. Right now, you'll see the proposed left-west elevation. Right now, there are just two doors with two landings right there. So we're proposing to add that gable over the top to break up the length of the building. The building is more than the 50 feet allowed. On the north and south, you'll see some gables to break up the flat roof line, and I want to say Widow's Walk, but it's not Widow's Walk. The cupola on top will also be added to break up the building itself. And next, please.
Did you want to talk about what your relief you're asking for here at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, this right, the area that Kathy's there on the proposed right / east elevation. There's an existing ramp and a doorway right there. Right now the building is more than the 50 feet in length. So originally we were thinking about putting in a dormer over that area just to break it up. But if we put in the dormer, then we run afoul of the setback that's on the property line. So we're asking for relief to allow that portion of the building to remain as it is. We will add the dormers on top, but just not the dormer on the side, the gable on the side, I should say, and just to allow it as it is today. Next slide, please. And this is the landscaping plan. You'll see that we've kept everything back 8 feet from the Route 28 state layout to allow for that easement to be utilized by the state if ever required. And we've added in some grading and some plants and trees. There is some drainage underneath there, so we have to be very cognizant of where we're positioning this so that we don't interfere with the current drainage. And next slide, please.
That's it.
That's it. And with that, Andrew and I will be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Kathy, I know you have got some comments in our packet.
Yep. I think they did a good job with the submittal materials of trying to address the comments from the VCOD site plan review of the things that could be addressed at this particular time. They did modify the landscaping plan along Route 28, made the berm a little bit more natural and not linear. They added the foundation plantings, and there's also a note regarding irrigation. They did add on to the architectural drawings the two porticos over the entrances by the restaurant. And they added notes regarding replacement or overlaying of certain areas of the pavement They have a concrete sidewalk detail, and then they also added that note for the stop line and stop sign. In addition to the special permit granting criteria that Andrew went over to begin with, there's also some additional criteria in section 414.3.3 that's included in the planner report for the board to consider when looking at their special permit. And I do think Andrew went over some of these items in his reasoning letter that he sent to you. I did have a couple, his summary of reasoning. I did have a couple things that I questioned a little bit with regard to the summary, and it's in your packet as well regarding specifically the stormwater. The engineering department had asked for some additional verification of the adequacy of this stormwater. And so there's some additional conditions that are being proposed to be added to the special permit if approved. Although I'd like to think that the site plan review is very opinionated, they're really not. They go more to regulatory, so they didn't really offer any positive or negative. So I think we just want to be clear that it wasn't site plan review team advocating or positively reviewing the project. They just review it for regulatory control. Item number 3 references maximum commercial tenant size, which isn't applicable to VC2, and also mentions minimum dwelling sizes, which isn't relevant for congregate living. I know Kieran did talk in item 10 about the adequacy of the fire and truck access. And I think the template did show that it could come in and take the right. The question always has been, well, can it take the left and go around the east side of 822 Route 28? So that still, I think, is a bit of a question. And that is why there was a comment in the, or an actual condition in the VCOD site plan review decision. And last one was item 16. It was just a little clarification. I don't think the design review committee or the site plan review committee reviewed these 5 relief items that were mentioned. I think that kind of came about a little bit later, but in the reasoning, it could be noted that the planning board did vote to support that relief at your meeting on May 6th. So I have a planner suggestion there with regard to some potential 2 conditions there if you would like. And before I forget, there is someone in the public who has done a chat. So when we get to that, no one let me forget.
Get to them.
No one let me forget, and I will read it.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Tom, I didn't hear you.
Are you going to read it now, or are you finished?
No, it's whenever you have public comment, I'll read it, or anytime you'd like.
Well, let me just ask you this. Do you have any comments from the building commissioner, or is he online?
He is not online, and he had no comments.
Okay. Andrew, would you like to address Kathy's comments before we move on?
Sure, thank you. I reviewed the comments that Kathy had. We agree with those and the 2 conditions that she suggests, referring back to the VCOD conditions, and there were a number of them there, and further review with the engineering department, as the construction moves along. We're fine with both of those.
Great. Okay, Kathy, public comments?
Hang on a second, and I'm just going to stop sharing. I do have a chat from Abigail Santos. She's a homeowner at 15 Frank Baker. She had a few questions regarding the plan for the nursing facility, which is not 100% nursing facility, but will any of the construction expansion affect the pathway to the conservation area which occurs at the end of Frank Baker Road? Will the fence be extended to cover the lot known as 30 Frank Baker Road? I just want to be sure that I will still be able to access the conservation area without any difficulties.
If I could answer that, there was no intention to extend the fence line or to block anybody's access at the rear of Frank Baker.
Okay. Any other comments from the public, Kathy?
I guess I would just say if anyone else is interested in commenting, or if Abigail would like further clarification on her questions, you can raise her hand. Right now, I'm not seeing anybody's hands raised or any further. Oh, wait, we do have Abigail would like to speak. I'm just gonna. Abigail, can you hear us? Oops, hang on. Abigail, I think you're going to have to unmute yourself. There you go. Can you hear us?
Guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So I was actually just getting in the car when I typed that, so I wasn't even sure if it went through. I just got home from my office, so
Did you hear the
and I
answer?
didn't hear. I did not. It cut out.
Maybe Kieran, you could give your answer again.
There is no intention to lengthen the fence any further than what it is right now, and there is no
Okay.
intention to block anybody with access at the rear of Frank Baker Road.
Okay, all right. That's it. That's just what we wanted to make sure. And I did hear early on, Attorney Singer said this would not be used as like a cut through, and there'd be no access. Correct?
That is correct. There'll be no vehicular or pedestrian access beyond out to Frank Baker Road.
Okay, perfect. That's all we wanted to know.
All right, excellent. You're all set?
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for calling in.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, at this time, I think we'll go to the board for comments, questions. Chris Vincent?
I'm here.
Any comments, questions?
No, I've been through this with the design review committee, so this is my third time seeing it. So I think they've done a great job making the accommodations that they had to, and I think the building's gonna, it's gonna look very nice. They've done a lot of work. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Liz Hotspur? Comments, questions?
I just had a question. I was looking at the long-term pollution and operation maintenance plan, and it talks about fertilization. And I know that property is really close to a pond and conservation area. So the fertilization that is listed in there, I checked it, and they recommend that you guys do soil tests to make sure that it doesn't go into our drinking water and the nitrogen loading. So considering all the wastewater projects that our town is going forward and our region is going for, I highly recommend that the board consider looking into a condition that the soil test to make sure that any fertilizer that they're planning on doing on the planting that's listed in the attachment that they included in our packet, that it is environmentally friendly and safe for our drinking water supplies and our environmental natural resources.
Good point. Lee Rowley, comments, questions?
I didn't have anything significant, but I'm assuming that all of these units are going to be leased units. There's no ownership involved.
This is Andrew Singer through the chair. That the answer is you are correct, Mr. Rowley. This is a rental community.
Okay. And how long would the lease be for?
My understanding is to be a typical 1-year lease scenario.
Okay. That's all I have, Tom.
Thanks, Lee. Joanne Crowley?
No comments. I'd just like to thank Kieran and Andrew for your time over several meetings. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Barron? Thank you, Joanne.
Yes, Liz brought up a point about a pond to the rear, but that pond is a salt pond. And so the soil issue is one that probably isn't as critical as it would be if it were a freshwater pond, and this area is not anywhere near the aquifer overlay zone. So I don't know if those issues do apply. I have one further question for Kieran. I asked about the water easement to the rear. There is a 6-inch water main in Route 28. Does the complex have only the access to water from in the rear, or is there a secondary access in the front of the building?
I believe the drinking water for the building comes from the rear, but I do believe that there was a water line put in for the sprinkler system for the restaurant when it got built about 10 years ago. For that sprinkler that came off directly off of Route 28. I don't remember exactly how that plan worked, but I just can't imagine they would have ran the sprinkler system 500 feet from the back up to the street when they could have picked it up at the street and just ran it 50 feet into the building. I can find that answer out, but I would be very surprised if it didn't run directly off of 28.
Yeah, other than that, I have no further questions.
Okay. As far as myself, I think it's going to be an outstanding project. It's something that we've been waiting for a long time. We've been talking about the redevelopment of Route 28 for years and years and years, and this is just another cog in the wheel. And I think if you look at what Yarmouth is faced with out of the 15 towns on the Cape, no other town has the issues that we have on the 5.3 mile stretch of 28 in regards to out-of-date motels and what have you. But little by little, by piecemeal, I think you'll see a significant change based on what we've accomplished already and what the town is looking at in the future. So I want to congratulate you guys. You guys made a great presentation. Mr. Singer, Attorney Singer, and Karen as well. And all the information that we required or asked you for came forward. So from my perspective, it's a win-win. Does any board member have a motion they would like to make?
Can we talk a little bit more about Liz's comment? I don't know whether she had some language specific that maybe you guys would like to talk about. I do know that nitrogen is a problem with the salt water and phosphorus is more of a problem with the fresh water. So I do think that that's an interesting comment, especially with the wetlands so close there. I just didn't know if you had some specific language that you were thinking of.
I agree. I was going to bring it up under discussion.
Oh, sorry.
Based on the other, the two issues that we have relative to conditions. And one other thing I wanted to mention too, and it just came to mind. Mr. Singer, is there any proposed security cameras that might be going into the parking area and the walking paths?
There are going to be security cameras within the building. And I believe, Kieran, I believe there may be some on the site itself, but I do not believe that we've discussed to the rear of the property towards the conservation areas.
Obviously, it's not required, but with the larger buildings that are going in town, the trust has been looking to have the developers install these cameras in the parking lots and also hallways and what have you. And in this particular complex, we're talking about an elderly community. And I think that it would assist them. I give them a sense of security as well. So just a thought.
Yes, and my understanding is that there will be cameras for the parking lot, as well as in the building.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, back to any other comments from the board? Any questions? If not, would someone like to make a motion and include the conditions that we spoke of? I don't think the chair can make a motion.
No. You can make it and then someone will say it's theirs.
I'll bite the bullet.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to grant the special permit for assisted living retirement communities for the South Yarmouth Wise Living Retirement Community at 822 and 834 Route 28 and 30 Frank Baker Road, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall adhere to the conditions outlined in the planning board's VCOD 2020-1 site plan review decision dated April 24, 2020. Number 2, the applicant shall adhere to the March 3, 2020 site plan review team comments from the engineering department regarding stormwater drainage, including submission to the satisfaction of the engineering department drainage calculations, verifying the adequacy of the capacity of all existing stormwater infrastructure to meet the needs of the site. Inspection logs from the owner's engineer of existing drainage structures, documentation of cleaning of drainage structures if needed, and providing a construction period, erosion and sedimentation control plan. End of motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, for discussion, Liz comment that she brought up relative to soil tests. How's the board feel about that?
I'll start. I
com-
took a look at the grounds. There's not a lot of grass. I understand the issue. I understand what Liz is getting at. But if you look to the west of that property, there's a lot of houses there too that are unregulated. I think this is minor compared to the property to the other side.
Very
So,
true.
I'm okay with having some kind of language there. I just don't want to be so obtrusive or so onerous to them that it some makes it a larger issue than it needs to be.
That's my concern as well. Any other comments under discussion, this motion? Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote. Chris?
If I could, before that, if Liz had something to add to that, is, what kind of soil testing or how often it has to be done, how much does it cost?
Yeah, I think it's just to make sure that the soil can absorb it and it doesn't go into affecting any of our estuaries or anything that we have, because as you all know, that it's just really important right now for us to do our due diligence. And I understand
Absolutely.
there are a lot of houses. I understand that point, Chris. But we've got to start somewhere. And I think just asking for them to look at options is not hard to do. There are so many options out there nowadays. And I think that's really important for us to take the lead. I mean, and assist our other boards and committees. And also we're in charge of making sure that the selectmen's goals are incorporated into our decision making. So that is one of
Absolutely.
their top priorities on their annual goals. So I do think that it is important that we ask. I don't think it's onerous. I love the project. I'm not putting that down in any capacity. I think it's going to be a fabulous thing on Route 28, which is very much needed for our community on every level. But that being said, it doesn't hurt to ask for just a little bit more, especially when it comes to the life of our community as far as environmental, because everybody knows that's why people come here. So I think everybody should do their part.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
if I might, this is Andrew Singer. Maybe I could address the comment,
Sure.
the discussion.
I was just going to go to you, Andrew.
Thank you. It's something the applicant agrees with what Liz, you were saying. They certainly want to do their part to be good stewards. Maybe what we could do here, given the uniqueness of the site and the fact that most of the landscaping is at the front, on the Route 28 side of the property, as opposed to a specific condition, I'm not sure where it would fit in, but maybe add into your discussion and the decision itself a finding that the applicant's making a commitment to look at, implementing more environmentally friendly fertilization, as feasible. And have that in the decision, maybe not as a condition, but it is in there and noted. And the applicant is willing to do that.
Which I am comfortable with. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, and I'd like to follow up with Liz's comment as well. I wasn't trying to shoot you down on your comment, but I think the second condition on the motion for the engineering department to check the stormwater drainage is going to be a much more significant issue than any fertilization of the vegetated area up at the front of the property. I could foresee that if the lot is sloped toward the pond, heavy rains will overwhelm potentially overwhelm the drainage structures, and any overflow will head toward the pond in any event. So I think that's more significant than the fertilization issue up front. But it is, your point is a valid one, and if the owner can look to it realistically, then something should be done. Thank you.
Okay. So Kathy, we'll use that language in our decision.
Andrew is going to work up a draft decision.
Yes.
That's why I went through a little bit more detail, the reasoning and the things I didn't agree with, because I want him to fix that when he
Okay.
sends it to me. So if he adds that into the finding, what he said, it sounds like everyone's happy with that. So the motion
Yes.
is staying the way it is, but I'll make sure that when I review it and before I send it to you, Tom,
Okay.
that's included.
Very good. Okay, at this time, I'll call for a roll call vote. Chris Vincent,
In favor?
Liz Hosgrove,
Yes.
Dee Rowley,
Yes,
Joanne Crowley,
Yes,
Tom Barron,
Yes.
and myself, yes as well. So congratulations, long time coming. And of course, COVID-19 took precedent, but we were able to get it accomplished. Mr. Singer, Attorney Singer, when's the projected construction start time?
We're going to the Board of Appeals next week for the relief that we've discussed a few times with you. And my understanding is they would like to begin later this year. I
Great.
don't know the exact length of time it will take. It's an involved project, but
No, it is, yeah.
They would like to begin later this year.
Well, that's encouraging. Other business owners like to see that happen relative to something going on. So again, good luck.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all of your time and efforts.
Thanks,
You
guys.
bet.
See you on Thursday.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Bye.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. Can I just get someone to make a motion to close the hearing?
Like to make
Okay,
a-
I'm just getting,
Motion
someone like to
close the
make a
hearing?
motion, close the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to have a roll call vote. Chris,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Lee,
yes.
Joanne,
yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Tom, yes. Okay, now we're on to the minutes. May 6th, 2020. Did y'all get a chance to read those?
Yes, I did. And I make a motion to approve as written.
Thank you. Second,
Second,
all those in favor? Roll call. Chris,
Yes.
You weren't at the
Oh,
meeting.
abstain. Abstain.
okay, Chris abstains. Liz,
Yes.
Lee,
yes.
Joanne?
Abstain?
Oh, that's right, you were absent too. Can we go?
Yep, you can do it.
Tom?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. Would that be out of necessity?
Nope.
Necessity?
Nope.
Okay,
You got a majority.
very good. Board of Appeals, agenda decisions. Kathy usually sends that to us. Committee updates, board members.
There's been a little activity on my side for housing, so I have nothing to report.
Okay. Yarmouth Municipal Housing Trust met yesterday in regards to the Yarmouth Gardens. And we met with the the owner of Community Development, James Parenti. And he informed us that he lost some of his lenders. And part of it had to do with the COVID-19. A couple of banks just backed away. But he was able to find new lenders, and he seems to be back on track again. And he asked the town for $61,000 to put into the package for the over $400,000 that he was looking for. And after looking at the prospective new lenders, the trust voted to approve the 61,000. And he also got a $100,000 check from Barnstable County Consortium. And so things are back on track. And with all the new lenders and the information that he has to get for them, he figures that he will be back on track to start construction towards the end of July. So that's good news. 40 units, Yarmouth Gardens.
Tom, a quick question. Did
Sure.
he indicate, or is it public information as to the lenders who did back away?
He did, but I would rather not say.
Okay,
One was a local lender.
okay.
Correspondence, Kathy?
I've just been sending you little stuff.
Okay. Staff updates?
It is looking like we are trying to see whether we can have town meeting on June 22nd and trying to do it safely. I think they're looking at ways of doing it maybe at DY in a bunch of different auditoriums and open spaces and having cameras. So there's a little bit of work going on that. There's been a lot of changes to the budget related to potential losses in revenue due to COVID-19. I don't know if anyone saw the Board of Selectmen meeting last night, but they went over the budget for fiscal year 21 and trying to come up with different ways of reducing costs so that we can assume a certain amount of lost revenue from both the state as well as from our different types of town revenue. I'm sure all of you have been paying attention to the reopening of the state, and the governor has a 4-phase reopening plan, and he instituted the first phase on Monday. There's a lot of great information. I'm sure there was a lot of sleepless nights developing these outlines and protocols. There's some very specific use protocols depending on particular things like you are like offices. There's actually protocols if you wanted to do a drive-in theater. So there's a lot of different things that they tried to be a little bit more specific for certain types of industries. And of course, they'll be rolling out more of that. Things like opening restaurants and retail, that's in later phases, hopefully phase 2. Hopefully phase 1, I guess, is one of those things where they're going to, I think, a minimum of 3 weeks to get a look into different indicators of how we're doing with the COVID-19 and making sure that we're not having a resurgent. We may have to go back, but hopefully we can continue to move forward. The town is trying to work with some businesses. I don't know whether Liz has any insight on this in Barnstable, but they did an excellent letter from the town manager to the lieutenant governor regarding different legislative relief with regard to serving of alcoholic beverages at restaurants. If people can't have people inside, they're going to want to have people outside. And in order to expand your seating or change your seating, you have to go through the ABCC and the whole Board of Selectmen process, which can be in the butter notifications in the public hearing. And it can be very...
By that time, you're out of business.
Right. By that time, it's not worth doing it. So looking for some type of legislative relief. Tim Whalen, Julian Sear, and Will Crocker did give a presentation at the very beginning of the Board of Selectmen meeting. And it sounded like they weren't sure whether that was going to be a legislative resolution or whether this is going to be something where they're going to be trying to move things through the ABCC. It's in streamlined fashion. I think there was some skepticism with regard to whether that was even possible. But what we're doing here at Town Hall is we're trying to go through. So we put in a letter, the town of Yarmouth did, supporting that letter from the town of Barnstable because it was very well written and very thoughtful, and also asking for some additional regulatory relief regarding other regulations, specifically zoning. I mean, people want additional signage. that they're going to possibly be looking for more outdoor display of their wares for retail, you know, in the parking areas. And we've taken a look at our zoning bylaw, and there are some things in there that people can do now. We do have the opportunity for tent sales and that type of thing, and temporary signage, but it's for a limited period of time. So in our letter to the state, we also asked if they could provide some type of regulatory relief for things like zoning and health. And I think Falmouth was doing something very similar. I've seen a lot of articles out there in Dennis and Sandwich and other towns who seem to think that you can change some of these things on the local level. And I don't really know how you can do that legally, because I mean, any change to zoning, even if it's temporary, either has to go through town meeting, or you have to go through a special permit variance or special permit relief process. So, and obviously, again, that's another time consuming thing. So we're going to try and work with the businesses as much as we can in order to accommodate what they need to do to make things move forward. But it would have been much easier if it was a legislative relief that gave zoning back temporarily to the Board of Selectmen, who could then delegate it to things like site plan review and the building commissioner.
One of the comments basically said that the ABCC is so bureaucratically bound that they were not being very flexible, and it would be much more convenient if the local boards would have some discretion in these matters, particularly that it's only a temporary fix rather than a permanent requirement, as you said, with the zoning changes, et cetera.
So stay tuned.
Yeah,
It'll be an
exactly.
ever evolving situation.
Oh, by the way, Kathy, after 35 years, we got rid of the drive-in site too soon.
Well, not yet, not yet.
Because they've become very popular everywhere now.
There is
Yeah.
someone who has expressed some interest in, and I don't know if Joanne has more information from CEDC, but
Yeah,
there is someone.
I wanted to jump back. I did have a committee report that I wanted to present briefly. The Community Economic Development Committee did meet yesterday. And a couple of things. One, we have, as part of the annual town meeting warrant, an amount that's our funding for next year from the Tourism Preservation Fund, which is a pretty good number because it's based on this year's receipts, tax receipts. So there is an article in the warrant for $379,000, which typically we would allocate among various needs that we are allowed to by legislation. This year, though, the town has requested that we hold in suspension an amount that we might, my words, loan to them in the amount of $150,000 to cover any budget gaps that they may have that would satisfy our legislative mission. There are only certain things that funding from the Tourism Preservation Fund can be used for. They have not specifically asked for an amount, but there is a consideration of a certain amount that they may come back to us. And I think they're doing this with other committees as well. Kathy, are they doing this with CPA?
I think with CPA, they have a certain percentage of CPA can be used for administrative fees, and we haven't been hitting the maximum. So the idea was, okay, let's tap into the maximum we can through the administrative fees.
But the town has to actually, and we're getting a town council to weigh in on this, has to actually ask us specifically to redirect funds from our discretion to theirs. And it's very dynamic, it's in flux, but we did agree that should the town need an allocation from this Tourism Preservation Fund, we would consider it. So we don't have specifics on that. Second thing is with regard to the drive-in, Tom, there actually have been 2 letters of interest sent to the town regarding use as a drive-in. So Karen Green and her staff, Kathy's been involved in some of this as well, are taking a look at what these proposals are and whether or not they're feasible. They would, of course, require some improvement in Wi-Fi at the site, which has been a lingering issue, even when we had the Irish Festival there and the Country Music Festival. So Wi-Fi has always been an issue there, but there may be a way we can address that. So that is the report out from CEDC.
Is that in conjunction with the Riverwalk Park that's planned, Joanne?
Which now?
The drive-in?
Yeah,
Right.
it would be the parcel that is not the Riverwalk.
Right.
It would, the two proposals are from entities that apparently, at least they've said, have some background in portable drive-in screens and videos and the like. But they're in
Temporary.
they're very early stage discussions and not really proposals, but just simply letters of interest to, hey, let's maybe think about using it as a drive-in again.
Yeah.
I think it was the use of town-owned land, and they were looking to, have certain events. I think this was a somewhat unusual in that it was going to be more of an extended period of time. Most people who've come and used the drive-in site have done it for 1 weekend type thing. But it's certainly very, very interesting. They do seem to have a lot of horsepower, people interested. So.
Joanne brings up the issue of Wi-Fi access at the drive-in site. I've made comment before about the Wi-Fi repeater that was scheduled for just across the Parker River Bridge, the commercial property that's there. There's a telephone pole just before the condo units, and that repeater has not yet been installed. If that were done, it would be direct line of sight to any use of Wi-Fi on the drive-in site, but that one has not yet been installed. Out of about 15, there are only 2 that have not been installed, and that's one of them.
Very good. Upcoming meetings, June 3rd.
Yeah, we will have an A&R for that meeting.
Okay. Very good. And 17th as well? Anything else?
I have nothing for the 17th, just the 3rd
Okay.
right now.
Motion adjourned.
So moved.
Roll call vote.
Second.
Chris Vincent,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Lee Rowley,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Tom, yes. Thank you all.
Yes,
Good
thank you,
meeting.
guys.
Thank you.
Accomplished a lot.
Have a great weekend.
Yep.
You too.
Everybody.
Happy Memorial Day.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. That snuck up on us.
Where did that come
It
from?
doesn't
I
feel
know.
like it, that's for sure.
Where is the time going?
It's early this year. We'll blame that,
It is.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, see you guys.
Kathy,
Yeah.
you said you had some signatures you're gonna have to
Yeah.
get. When you get
Yes.
ready, no rush.
Yep, I'm
Well,
gonna
yeah,
wait until I have until we have the special permit done, and then you can sign the A&R from the
Okay.
other meeting. So,
All right.
Okay.
See you on the beach.
Good night, all.
Bye.
All right.